This is The Real Demers, where we tackle B-sides, the offbeat, and the overlooked. We've worked in and around Hollywood, so we know just how hard it is to get a movie made. This is our space to celebrate cinematic misfits we hope you'll enjoy as much as we do. And today, we're talking tripods, tentacles, and terraforming. It's time for Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. I'm one of your hosts, Andre Sanglade, and with me is...
I'm Greg Bellavia.
Okay, listeners, I know. We claim to cover the B-sides and the overlooked on the podcast, and here we are with another massive mainstream film from one of the biggest directors in the world, starring one of the biggest actors in the world. This one's on me. It's all my doing. So direct your hate mail to me, not Greg.
I think you share some credit with one Ice Cube because
yes.
this did not come up in a vacuum. I believe there was the War of the Worlds has been in the news, so that may have gotten your wheels turning.
Yeah. So since War of the Worlds is back in the public consciousness, we did feel it's well worth our time to revisit. But also, just so Greg doesn't feel left out, maybe send him some hate mail too. When this movie came out in 2005, it was a success commercially, but it was and still is a bit divisive. Critics and audiences were divided by the spectacle, family dynamic, and some of the story points that Spielberg decided to explore, especially in the end. But spoiler alert, I love this movie. I loved it the first time I saw it. I will always defend it, but I recognize no film is perfect. First, a little bit of history about the source material. The War of the Worlds is a science fiction novel written by H.G. Wells. It was first published serially in 1897 by Pearson's Magazine in the UK and by the Cosmopolitan magazine in the US. The novel details a catastrophic conflict between humans and extraterrestrial Martians. There have been numerous adaptations of the novel. I won't go through every single one of them, but there are a few notable versions. On October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles directed an adaptation for the radio with his Mercury Theater group. It was so convincing it made audiences panic. They actually believed a Martian invasion was taking place. Have you heard this version?
I've only heard snippets, but I love it. I mean, what a fantastic, old kind of Hollywood thing to have happen.
I actually listened to it. It starts off pretty dated, but after a while, I got really into it. They kind of go all out, implementing really cool sound effects. There's scenes of reporters on the ground as the attack begins, and in the background, there's people screaming. They're getting first-person accounts. There's a scene that takes place in a bomber on a run when it's attacked. And, like you said, previously, all I had known about it was that it was Orson Welles narrating the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But he actually plays a professor, and only the last half is him narrating as the character while he explores the countryside after he survives the initial attack. I mean, it's also hard not to be compelled by Orson Welles' voice, so that helps. Sure. The first theatrical adaptation of the novel was in 1953, directed by Brian Haskin for Paramount Pictures. I didn't know this, but there were two more film adaptations that came out in 2005. One produced by Pendragon Pictures, directed by Timothy Hines, and the other produced by Asylum Films, directed by David Michael Latt. Have you seen those?
I have not seen. I knew the Asylum. I think they did one, and I believe it has a sequel as well. So that one was on my radar.
Yeah, I haven't seen them.
Have you seen the 50s version?
I haven't. No. I really want to check it out. I was hoping I'd have time to do that before this recording this, but I didn't. And now we have yet another adaptation released in 2025, starring Ice Cube, directed by Rich Lee. I have not seen this version, so I cannot comment on it. Greg did watch it.
Well, I know this was an Andreas kind of fueled episode, but I will say I love War of the Worlds. I read there was an illustrated version for kids that I read cover to cover. I was into morbid stuff when I was a kid. Go figure. Enjoyed that. Loved the 50s version. Did you know that there was a sequel to the 50s version done as a Canadian television show in the 80s? Ran for 2 seasons, and it ended up on the USA Network here in the States.
I knew about a few different TV versions. I don't think I've seen any of them.
That scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. The promos for it with the aliens were coming. So I actually, this whole episode kind of unlocked a whole bunch of stuff that I in the back of my vault in my mind of oh my God. So I was going back and watching promos. You can find a lot of it on YouTube. It's interesting. It's not just a War of the Worlds TV show. It is literally a sequel to the 50s. The disease made them go dormant. They've been sleeping since then, and the 80s show is them waking up after all this time, which I think is kind of an interesting concept for back then.
That's an awesome concept. What a
Yeah.
great idea for a sequel. But that's so interesting to do a sequel like that, what, 30 years later?
Yeah, yeah, of all things. So just so I guess it's kind of got a cult following. Look, the X-Files is awesome. I'm not good, but like even I was thinking, I'm like, was that a little X-Filesy? Because the aliens could take on human form, and it's them doing like kind of like Case of the Weeks type stuff. People have compared it to that. So if you kind of want a proto X-Files, I think you can track down. So it's got a cult
Got it.
following. Maybe
Yeah.
our listeners will become part of the cult. We'll see. But yes, in preparation for this episode, I did watch the 2025 version. Look, guys, everything you've heard is true. So you should go watch it immediately. That's why it's a hoot. I think the idea of staging an alien invasion all on screens, everything is kind of through computer screens, on phone screen, that type of thing. That's an interesting concept. Whether or not it succeeds at what it wants to do, that's up to you, the listener. But I'll just say I had a really good time with it. I had a really good time.
And that concept is done really well in a John Cho movie called Searching. I don't know if you've seen that, but
I heard good things.
yeah, it follows that concept. And honestly, it's done. I thought it was very inventive. And just hearing about a War of the Worlds adaptation using that concept, I could work. I have not seen it, so I can't comment, but I've heard a lot about it.
Your mileage may vary. Please, guys, please listen to what I'm saying. I think you'll have a good time with it. And you got to take that what you got to read between the lines of what I'm saying here. But that's I think you'll have some fun. Maybe not quite hitting the same emotional beats as say 2005's War of the Worlds.
That's fair. And maybe it's a little unfair to ask you about it, but we try to be positive about films here. But hey, this is the real Redeemers. Maybe in 20 years we look back and see that it can be redeemed.
Look, it's a lot of fun, period.
I'm glad you had fun with it. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously the more well-known 2005 adaptation is the one directed by Spielberg, written by Josh Friedman and David Koepp. It stars Tom Cruise, Dakota Fanning, and Justin Chatwin. The story follows a divorced blue-collar father who's never been great at parenting, as he's suddenly forced to protect his teenage son and young daughter when a devastating alien invasion begins. With society collapsing around them, the absent father must step up in ways he never has before, guiding his children through chaos, fear, and destruction, while struggling to keep them safe as they journey to reunite with their mother. Greg, did you see this one in theaters?
I did.
And what was your feeling back then?
As you alluded to at the beginning, I had heard this one was a little divisive, and a little birdie had told me a spoiler about the ending, and that was kind of looming over me like a cloud the entire time I was watching it.
Okay.
And I've always thought this was a good movie, but some of the
we'll get to it. I think we'll get to it.
I walked out of it like a little shaking my fist in the air, and there's never a point where I'd call this bad. Even if you would ask me the next day, hey, did you like it? I'd say yes, but I'm so bewildered by some of the choices it makes. There's amazing things happening here. And we'll get into all of that. And it's such a spectacle, especially now here we are 20 years later. But my frustrations outweighed the stuff that I enjoyed at the time. That was me 20 years ago.
Okay, so Spielberg had two releases in 2005, War of the Worlds and Munich. We can save Munich for a later date, but both of these films are obviously Spielberg's response to 9/11 and the utter helplessness of America feeling under attack. During the press junket for War of the Worlds, Devin Faraci at Chud.com asked Spielberg, "The film speaks a lot of levels about refugees and their flight. Is that a theme in the film for you?" Spielberg responds, "Well, it is. It's an unfamiliar theme to all of us because we don't often see images of American refugees, except after local and national disasters like hurricanes and people fleeing, and approaching hurricanes in the Florida Keys. And of course, the image that stands out in my mind the most was the image of everybody in Manhattan fleeing across the George Washington Bridge in the shadow of 9/11. Which is something that is a searing image that I haven't been able to get out of my head. This is partially about the American refugee experience because it's certainly about Americans fleeing for their lives, being attacked for no reason, having no idea why they're being attacked and who is attacking them." And look, to me, the parallels to 9/11 are extremely apparent. I still remember the shocking images of people walking away from Ground Zero completely covered in dust. And in this film, we have the first attack with people getting obliterated and turning into dust.
Yep.
Tom Cruise's character goes home and totally covered in the dust and freaks out once he realizes he's essentially carrying the remnants of dead bodies all over him. So this is Spielberg's first quote unquote mean alien movie, right? Before this, all of his explorations of aliens were of wonder and joy. And in this one, they tear shit up. Some call this Spielberg's dark period. And for reference, here's his output. In 2001, he released AI Artificial Intelligence, which is a Pinocchio like exploration of love and acceptance. 2002, Minority Report explores a surveillance state and police corruption. 2002, Catch Me If You Can. Identity and Fraud. 2004, The Terminal, post 9/11 anxiety regarding borders and security. 2005, War of the Worlds, post 9/11 anxiety about being attacked. And 2005, Munich, the futility of vengeance and cyclical violence. These are dark themes. The Terminal is played almost like a comedy, but its dissection of homeland security is there. And it's the story about someone losing their home. Catch Me If You Can has fantastic moments of optimism, but Frank is sad and struggling. Would you call this Spielberg's dark period?
No, absolutely. And I think grappling with 9/11, it was a mark on our country that we still feel. And I think, as an artist, as a major American artist, it's seeped deep into the roots of his filmmaking. I will say, while I think this flips his kind of take on aliens a bit from what we had seen, I just like the return of Steven Spielberg, horror thriller filmmaker, like Duel, Jaws, elements of Temple of Doom, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jurassic Park, Lost World. I mean, like, I don't think he's synonymous with like horror thriller, but like when he wants to like stretch those muscles, he's great at them. And I think this is one of his more like savage, like, this film's pretty merciless, where Jurassic Park, there's a certain empathy for the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs are just dinosauring. I don't think you're meant to hate the dinosaurs. These machines are there to be feared. These machines are there. You want this threat like gone. So it's just, I like that he's willing to go into this deep reservoir this late in his career. Honestly, I'd love him for him to pull this out of his bag of tricks again. It's been years at this point.
Agreed. Like I already said, I love this movie. I think it's him working every single tool he has on his tool belt, and it makes for just amazing set pieces throughout. Okay, before we get into our categories, there are a few things I want to address. One of the big issues that people seem to have, and we're going to get into it, I know Greg has been salivating as he patiently waits to unleash his thoughts, and that topic is the overall family dynamic and Robbie. Greg, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I think the beauty of this film is what you laid out as a reaction to the horror of 9/11. Here's something that our country has never had to contend with, that was engaged with in an extremely visceral way. We have access to cameras, we have access to 24-hour news, and we can constantly just kind of sit and stew in these images and this fear, and there's nowhere to go. There's 1,000 stories, and this is not a poor me. I was on Long Island when this happened. I was at Hofstra when this occurred. Where were you when 9/11 occurred?
Yeah, it had happened. It was like 2 weeks after we got back to school. It was like a week or 2 weeks after we got back to school. I hadn't even plugged in my TV. Like, that's how recently I'd moved into my dorm. And I remember we were in a high rise. So then we went to the top floor, and yeah, you could see the smoke billowing from the city of the towers on fire. It was crazy. It was crazy.
I had this is one of those gallows humor thing. I was on the way to comedy appreciation film class. Ooh. Of all things in the morning. And I went to grab a cup of coffee with my friend Courtney, and we're heading into Dempster where like the film communication classes were. And the first plane had hit. So it was on a television downstairs, and everybody was kind of gathered around. And you're trying to process that. And you're like, I guess I have class now. And we went up to class after a few minutes. And then somebody walked in and said a second plane had hit. And we were like, okay, something's up. We couldn't put together what that was. And I think we sat and watched a Chaplin film in shock because we didn't know what to do. And then after that, they canceled classes. But that was the morning. Then we walked back and tried to process. So we each like a visceral reaction. I don't have a crazy story any crazier than anybody else. A lot of other people that day.
Yeah.
But I can bring myself back to that moment immediately, and the fear of that day and the fear that came like afterward. And like there was a boxing match in the city weeks after that, and everything was safe, but there was still like this haunted feeling over things, and will something happen? And just like that mood, media or entertainment that can capture that is very interesting to me without being Oscar baity or without being treacly, or like these images are so powerful that like it's easy to mess this up. And if somebody does it wrong, that offends me on some level. And I know just like, and I guess art's there to shock you or whatever. So I guess not to be gatekeepery or whatever, but just this is something I'm sensitive to. If you're born after 9/11 or if you didn't live through it, you're not going to get it the same way. And it's like, we don't have the same response to Pearl Harbor, like my grandparents did. Like that, but there's certain events in your life that you are connected to. This is something for us that we're always going to have that. And I think what Spielberg is able to accurately tap into here is horror. Here are these machines that are literally vaporizing people, like you said, into dust, and you're covered in that. This is PG-13. This is one hard as hell PG-13, like people covered in ash. The aliens
Yeah.
feed on us. So it's like them turning us into mulch and spraying blood over like weed crops at one point. Like that's a thing. Them attacking, just constantly attacking like people on the run, kind of people turning against people. On that level, fantastic imagery. So I do think this is a very good film. And I think we're going to drill into some other of the window dressing. And I think that's where I kind of get held up. But I mean, if Spielberg's mission statement is to take this classic story, update it for the 2000s, and use that as a prism to shine what the nation was collectively feeling at that point, on that, I think he 100% succeeds. That's why no matter what my criticisms are going to be coming up, and we can toss the ball around on that, his mission statement, I do think he achieved it.
I mean, like you said, it's a horror film. Coming out of this film, the first time I saw it, there's images you just can't get out of your head. And a lot of them are terrifying. We'll get into specific scenes later.
So I take it was love at first sight for you?
With the film?
Yeah.
It was. I'm going to get into it with Robbie. There's a moment in the film about halfway through where massive battles taking place over a ridge just out of our view. Ray's son, Robbie, played by Justin Chatwin, eagerly wants to join in on the action. And this was already established earlier on in the film. Ray tries to prevent him from leaving, but he also has to keep Rachel safe because at the same time as Ray is holding Robbie back, there's a good Samaritan couple trying to grab Rachel to take her to safety.
She looks like she's by herself.
Exactly. She looks like she's by herself, and this couple is genuinely concerned for her safety. So Ray needs to decide between Robbie and Rachel. And Robbie repeatedly says, "Let me go." Ray eventually does. And look, it's significant for any parent who realizes there's a moment where they do need to let go. They need to let their child become the person they're going to be. But here it's a literal war zone. So as Ray grabs Rachel, there's a massive explosion over the ridge, and one of the tripods emerges through the flames. And it's heavily implied that Robbie is gone. And honestly, in the film, it didn't bother me that much. I actually like the feeling that you don't know what's going to happen to him. You believe that there's a good chance he may die, which feeds into that anxiety that Spielberg is exploring, which is a big thing. But also, to me, the parallel is that after 9/11, there was a massive amount of young people who joined the armed forces, Homeland Security, local and federal law enforcement, all because they felt they had to do something, right? There was a powerlessness that a lot of young people felt, and they felt like it was their duty to their country to try to do something. But the big thing in the movie is that, spoiler alert, in the end, when Ray and Rachel finally make it to Boston to meet up with his ex-wife and her parents, Robbie's just there, totally fine, like nothing even happened. And I think that turned a lot of people off. It seems like you have some thoughts, Greg.
What? I have thoughts on this? Oh, no way. No,
so that was it. I'll be honest, like coming out of the movie, it didn't ruin the movie for me. It was a surprise. I wasn't expecting it because I almost, like you said, you want Spielberg to go back to that horror, and there's enough horror happening in this film that I was honestly surprised that he made that choice of the implication of Robbie dying, right? Yeah. That is dark. So coming back around with Robbie surviving, I know a lot of people take issue with that. But I will say, in that same 2005 interview with Chud.com I mentioned earlier, Spielberg addresses that ending. He says, "I have hope for the future, which is probably why I'm not the best person to tell a story that leaves you with nothing to look for." And honestly, I thought that was great. Let the man cook. I can't fault him for wanting a happy ending. And this is a happy ending.
Okay, so I think there's a lot to chew on here. If you came in here and said, "I think Steven Spielberg is the greatest filmmaker of all time," I don't think that's a crazy take. Look, there's plenty of directors that I love. I love Michael Mann. I don't think Michael Mann's the greatest director of all time.
How dare you?
If he's somebody's favorite, if he's your favorite listening, that's fine. But like just looking at like an entire resume, I think there's certain people that are out there. I'm not saying he's my personal favorite, but I think Spielberg just makes a very strong case considering the length of his career and the films that he's tackled. With that said, the knock on him is when he confronts darkness, it gets a little widgy. Schindler's List, fantastic film, because I think he's taking a story that's so pitch black that with his mind, he's finding hope in darkness, and that fits that story. But there are other times where it feels like some of his movies just could end a little darker than they do, and I just don't think he has it in him. I think he wants to give you a hopeful ending. I understand that feeling. That's great. I don't think that needs to be in everything. And like, I guess, slight spoiler, I'm not sure if you ever saw Sugarland Express.
I have.
The text at the end that explains what happens makes the movie like 5 degrees happier than the images do. And it's almost like, well, I can't send the audience home completely to judge. And I feel like that's like this symbolism for his entire career. The story is taking an arc that's going towards a certain foregone conclusion of darkness. And I feel like he will always pull the plane up at the last. Now, we can't do that for good or for ill. So I don't know if Spielberg's ever made a movie I'd be like, that's a bad movie. Maybe that's something I don't engage with as much, but like I think he's made pretty good to amazing, the best films you've ever seen in your life. And if that's your resume, that's an amazing resume. But sometimes there's just this notion of I gotta pull it up at the end. And that's what I feel here. And again, it's not like the War of the World source material ends bleakly. We win. The narrator finds his wife at the end of the story. I mean, that's there. But how we get there here, those devils in the details, that's the part that bothers me. So it's not that it has a happy ending, it's how we get to that happy ending.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much.
Okay. So
it is. I mean, look, on first viewing, it's shocking that Robbie just shows up. There's no denying that. The imagery after he goes over the ridge, it's unquestionable that someone would have died.
I'm going to take us to I'm going to pick some nits. This is a new segment on this show where Greg picks nits. There's a scene where they're fleeing and they're trying to find the mom and her new husband, and they end up with the grandparents. But in the search, they end up at the mother and the new husband's house. And the house still has electricity. The house is in much better shape than where they were fleeing from that was under constant attack. So when they were fleeing, they threw a whole bunch of stuff into a box, foodstuffs or whatever stuff to survive on. And they get in, and now that they finally have a chance to breathe after the initial attack, he wants to make them something to eat. So he pulls out bread and he's going to make them some peanut butter sandwiches. So he deals out bread on the table and he goes to make a peanut butter sandwich. And his daughter's like, I can't have peanut. And he's like, since when? And she's like, since always. And he's frustrated, but he's trying to let it go. So he tries to give her just bread and she's not hungry. He turns to the son and he goes, hey son, can I get you a peanut butter sandwich with jelly? And the son goes, I'm not hungry either. And then out of frustration, he takes the slice that he's been putting peanut butter on and he throws it against the window and he takes the beat to try and collect himself. What are we going to do next? I appreciate the beat. I see what they're trying to do there. You know, he's a put-upon father. You know, he's never been there for these kids. It shows he's not connected. It's giving you information. It shows he's not as connected to them. It shows that like his attempt's going to fail. And like now he's got to kind of like, he's got to up his game. From screenwriting 101, I appreciate that. A couple things stand out to me. I do not believe for a second he would not know about the peanut allergy. I do not believe for a second that's not lived. Look at his wife. Look how controlled that woman was when she came in. Yeah. They've never had this conversation before, and even as flighty as he is, he wouldn't remember that. I don't believe that. Number two, he offers his son jelly with his peanut butter sandwich. The go-to move wouldn't have been, "Hey, I can't get you a jelly sandwich." Three, they're in a well-stocked house. He's in his wife's fucking house. They've got a refrigerator. They've got a pantry. So the writing is there to make a scene where he can't quite connect with the kids because he doesn't know them that well. I appreciate that. I get that. But the literal scene around them does not support it. So I don't buy it. I do not buy this family window dressing.
I have counterpoints.
Yeah, okay.
So first off, I think her line is when he says since when, she says birth, just so I think it's that, just so we don't get angry messages.
Dakota Fanning message boards coming at us. Yeah.
I understand your points. I took him as saying, oh, we're going to have jelly, just Robbie and I, as a way of like...
You offered jelly on the sandwich.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like Robbie and I are going to have peanut butter and jelly because he's sort of annoyed at her. So I took it more as like he's annoyed at her. And then my other point, he wants to use pieces of what he has to maintain control. Obviously, he didn't have bread. He saw the bread across the kitchen. He grabs it. He has his own peanut butter. I'm going to use this. This is me providing for my family with what I have.
I think you're right. I think that'd be the screenplay 101 explanation of what's happening in that scene. I don't feel like that's a real scene. So that goes back to Robbie over the hill. I get Robbie being gung-ho and wanting to do something. I felt that. I remember trying to rush out to give blood with people afterwards and then being full up. There wasn't, and they're just like this idea of, I have all this energy. I'd like to put it somewhere and having nowhere to put it. And what a frustrating feeling that was. I love trying to tap into that. I love incorporating. There's a scene where they're on a ferry and the ferry's going to take oh my gosh, the tripods are coming. and the ferry needs to take off. And in taking off, some people are jumping onto it and barely hanging on. And Robbie goes to pull people up. Like he's an action-oriented person. And you can see the look of pride on Tom Cruise's face during the. I love that. That's great.
It's a great moment. Yeah.
He doesn't come back, and Tom Cruise isn't like, "I'm proud of you, son." You don't need it. You get Robbie, and you get him seeing his son for what he is, and taking it in, and they don't need to tie a ribbon around it. Great. That's fantastic. When Robbie goes over that hill, it's a bad decision. That's a bad decision from him, and it's an unfathomable decision on Cruise's, like, to let him go. There's no way I'm letting him go. I understand the situation. The kids are getting pulled in two different directions. Yeah, I can see the writing trying to get around that and address it, but I would be screaming at my kids. I'm a father. I'd be dragging them on the hill. As a parent, it just rings hollow to let him go. And I don't buy Robbie believing this is a good idea. And like the weight of what a bad idea it is, I don't think is ever taken into account. Also, I don't believe Robbie trusts him to get his sister to the mom. So I feel like Robbie is doing his sister a disservice by leaving her behind with the father. So I don't feel like it's a lived-in choice, just like the peanut butter. I get where they're trying to go with it. He's a headstrong guy. He needs to make his own choices. Tom Cruise needs to let him go. It's so clunky in its execution. It's so dangerous. You can't hurt these tripods. They've got shields around.
Yeah.
Like the army can't, it's not like the army is making advances. Hey, we could use an extra set of hands. I could see that. If there was a group of survivors who were like, we're going to go up to the top of that hill and we're going to drop a whole bunch of rocks on them. We're going to try that. There's literally no plan. He is Robbie, a lone teenager trying to rush off after military personnel who are getting their asses handed to them. I do not buy that decision. So then to come back at the end, we have no idea how he survived. He survived somehow. And he goes, "Hi, Dad." He's finally calling him Dad after calling him Ray the entire movie. Is that an earned moment? They have not spent enough time together for what it is. What did his son earn by going over that hill? What did Ray earn to his son by letting him go? And that's how you end the movie. That's what you're leaving me with. It's not just so that's why I found it so grating at the time. This is what you're serving up as your victory lap. This character who I'm extremely frustrated with.
I could see that, especially the moment of not being there for his sister. There's another scene where there's a convoy of military driving by them, and Robbie's yelling, "Take me with you. I can help. Take me with you." And his sister runs up to him and says, "What are you doing? Like, who's going to take care of me if you leave?" And that's earlier in the film when they both don't think, that Ray can really take care of them.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you'd be like, "Well, Greg, don't you like this movie?" I do like this movie. If Steven Spielberg were to come onto the Zoom right now, you're going to gotcha interview me with Steven Spielberg.
He couldn't make it. Yeah, he couldn't make it.
Oh, damn. All right. Well, we'll get him for the 1941 episode that we do. But I think the point is just, I love tossing the ball around on this stuff. I get what they're going for, and I'd rather them try for it. Like, I think this is more interesting of a setup than if they were just a happy family trying to get away. And to your point, there's a metaphor in him trying to use his own food in that kitchen. I get, and there's a reason why. It's not just Robbie's a dumb kid. He's going over a hill. It's, he's a natural go-getter. He likes helping people. We need to straight back. I get it. I can tick off the film reasons why those things happen. I get caught up in the devil details. And also, I'm analyzing this in a way that I've seen Jurassic Park how many times now? I've never stopped to look at Jurassic Park like this. I've never stopped to look at Raiders of the Lost Ark like this. There's just something in the execution where I find myself sitting with it for some reason. But the pure spectacle on display, that wipes all this out. Like I'm picking at the window dressing. I understand. Yeah. So I see that frustration, and it's not like we can't talk about it, ... But to see a filmmaker of this magnitude playing with these elements and this destruction and kind of all that, that's the real story. And that I'm caught up with, and kind of got caught up on the nitpicky things in the 2005 watch. On this rewatch, a lot of it was just like, damn.
Yeah. I was just about to say the same thing. To me, the spectacle overshadows any sort of issues I have with the family dynamic and the Robbie character. It's, God, this movie's incredible. The set pieces, we'll get into it, but like you said, this rewatch, there's just so many amazing shots. Okay, so another issue that moviegoers had that I find ridiculous is the way the aliens are defeated is because of, quote, the common cold. That doesn't bother me because A, that's straight out of the book. And B, how would they know about every single type of bacteria on the planet?
Yeah.
There's a moment where Rachel has a splinter and Ray wants to take it out, but she says, no, when it's ready, my body will push it out. Very much like nature taking care of the aliens, pushing them out. I don't have an issue with that. Do you have an issue with this?
No, I mean it's from the source material, and also I like the story is all of your tech and gadgets and human ingenuity won't save you, but there's something built in that the aliens couldn't have even like even if they factored it in. Once you're like, we've had invasions ourselves where things have gone wrong on stuff that we haven't taken into account or didn't take into account.
Yeah.
So I've always, ever since I was a kid, I always thought that was a cute way to kind of wrap it up. So I guess you could accuse it of a Deus Ex Machina, but like I think this is a good use of it where it's clever versus other ones where it's I've never rolled my eyes at this. I think it fits the story for some reason.
Same. I think it works. I actually like it that it's not the humans defeating it, it's everything else around us.
Oh, let me just say the humans in the 2025 Ice Cube one are way more proactive, and that's one of my big problems with it. Now, so it's just like
Interesting.
It's War of the Worlds. It's a very Diet Coke version of the story. And
Okay.
even that's a generous description.
So again, about the ending, in his book, James Cameron's Story of Science Fiction, I don't know if you've read this book.
No.
I have not, but in 2018, Spielberg spoke to Cameron and he said that he, quote, never could figure out how to end that darn thing, quote, referring to the abrupt finale of War of the Worlds. He said, quote, the film doesn't have a good ending, quote. Now, Cameron responded saying, even H.G. Wells didn't know how to end it. To be fair, I didn't know if Spielberg was talking about the ending with Robbie and the family or the ending with the common cold defeating the aliens. But I thought that was interesting that he would say that.
I'm sorry not to get hung up on. Do you think the movie would be better if Robbie A wasn't in it, B stayed with them, C died in the attack? Do you think there's a better version of that? Do you think that would solve any of these issues? Or
no, I think this movie's perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. So it's A if he stayed with them, B if he C was if he died. What was B? Sorry.
I got it. If he either stayed with them the whole time, if he what was B?
I'll just respond to those two.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, if he stayed with them the whole time, it'd be a completely different film. I think the scene with Tim Robbins would play out very differently.
Mhm.
And then if he had died, that's what I was expecting the first time I had seen it. So I think I would have been okay with that if he had died. Obviously, it'd be a much darker version of the film. But let's say he did die, you had half of the movie to already think he was dead. So I wouldn't be surprised if Spielberg did end up just killing him.
Mhm.
The last topic I wanted to discuss before categories is a little bit of the debate regarding the scene with Tim Robbins, which I had just mentioned. I feel like I've been babbling the whole time. So, Greg, why don't you give us the breakdown?
All right. Well, following Robbie's departure, they're running away from the tripods, and they get motioned over to a house by a guy saying like, come over here. And it's Tim Robbins playing a character called Ogilvy, and they're hiding out in a basement. And he's somebody that's he's asked, did you lose anybody, lose family? And he goes like, all of them. So, okay, so suffered some kind of like horrific loss, in this disaster. But there's something just a little bit off about him. Tim Robbins, fantastic actor, but he can play intense, and like he's instantly intense. And obviously, you would be at first you're rolling with it. This man's been through a lot, but he's a little unhinged the way he's saying stuff. And then eventually, even Tom Cruise's Ray character comes out with just like, I'm with my daughter. Why did you bring us down here? And he's like, well, we're the rebellion. We're here they came out of the ground. We're here in this basement. We can attack them from underneath. Okay, that's a deranged thing to say. So either he's always been unstable, whatever this event is, has completely driven him over the edge. Like they're not with somebody who's thinking like in the right mind. So a probe comes in, and there's some suspense about whether or not they should like try and attack is that going to give away their position? So Ogilvy wants to attack it, and Cruise is trying to like talk him down. You finally see these creatures, the aliens kind of come into the base, and it's them hiding, and Ogilvy wants to like shoot them with like a shotgun, whereas Ray's trying to stop him, so they're like scuffling and trying not to make noise when the aliens are there. So it just keeps building with like Ogilvy wants to be way more aggressive with these threats that we don't even know if we can hurt them or what that's going to look like than Ray is. And also Ray has to think of his daughter. He's not going gung-ho into anything. And it comes to a head with, they finally kind of figure out what the aliens are grabbing humans, or you keep seeing these ships grabbing people. They're using them as food and fertilizer. And so you see these red weeds. And Tom Cruise's Ray holds his hand up and he's getting blood in his hand because there's so much blood in the air. Tim Robbins' face has blood all over it. I mean, what a shocking moment. We'd all freak out over something like that. But Tim Robbins completely loses it and he starts tunneling and he's going to just tunnel to like safety. But he's causing a lot of noise. And you know, Tommy's like, you got to stop. You're going to alert him. What are you doing? It's clear Tim Robbins is not going to listen to him. So finally, Tom Cruise's Ray, you know, has his daughter sing a song to herself and like not, you know, look in that direction. And then he goes into the room with the Ogilvy character with the intent of killing him so he's no longer a threat to them. You know, they're gone for a bit and somebody comes out of the room and luckily it's Ray and that's it. But out of safety, out of self-preservation, I don't know if I would call that a cold-blooded murder, but maybe a lukewarm murder, because at the time, Ogilvy's not attacking. Ogilvy is a threat. Ogilvy's actions are going to bring hell down upon them. So I mean, in that regard, it is self-defense. Self-defense. I'm using quotation marks here on you know on video. But Ogilvy is not directly doing anything to them to threaten them. So it's an interesting choice. I love it's in there. I think it goes with the whole survivor, being willing to do whatever you can. I think Spielberg threads this needle very well because I think you could overplay Ogilvy where he was in pure villain mode, where you hate him. I don't hate him. I think he's a not in his right mind character.
No, and I think that's where the debate comes. You know, there are people who discuss whether Ray was right to kill him, and like you just said, you don't hate him, and he's not a full-on villain. So yeah, do you think he was right in killing him?
I don't blame Ray. That's how I'd say. I don't know if I'd say the word right, because also, is there a version where you could incapacitate him? But then if you can incapacitate him, you've got to watch him 24/7, because if he gets out, he's going to cause more noise again. So it's like, I don't judge Ray for that decision. I'll say that. I'll say this. I do think you could make Ogilvy nicer and make that moment more of a knife twist, because I do not mourn Ogilvy. I'm not like, oh man, poor Ogilvy. And I think a different version of this film could set it up where maybe he's a little bit nicer when they come in and then you kind of see them deranged. I think he starts.
I don't know if I'd like that. I don't think I'd like that, because you need a reason. You need to get
no. But see, your reaction right there, that's an interesting movie. That's not this movie.
Yeah.
That's not this movie.
But
I think that's an interesting movie where they come in. I'm not arguing for that. I'm not saying that's not. I am not knocking this one. That's why I'm saying I think Spielberg plays this really well, because there's a version of this that I think you could lean on that and you would come away with it with a completely different set of emotions. Or you could go on the mustache twirling version. You don't do that either. So I think this one walks the line, but that works for the story.
It's interesting. On this rewatch, I caught a few different little details that I feel I hadn't caught on previous viewings. In one of the initial shots of Tim Robbins' character, we get a close-up of his belt. It's very quick, and he's kind of turning. Is that a badge on his belt? Like, I couldn't tell what was all in his belt.
You know, I know exactly what you're talking about. I did not go back to check it out. I don't know the significance of that.
And then you had mentioned it before when he said, you know, when Ray's like, did you lose anyone? He's like, everyone. So there's a moment when Tom Cruise's character, Ray, finally gets Rachel to kind of fall asleep, and Ogilvy gets his attention by clinking glasses together. And he says, peach schnapps. Disgusting, I know it. Found a whole case of this shit. This is the first time where I questioned whether this was even his house.
Well, found is an interesting word in there.
So when he said that, I found a whole case of this. I mean, to your point of, wouldn't they know what's in the mom's house in terms of food?
Yeah, that's our number one takeaway.
Yeah.
Know what's in your house during a disaster. You never know.
Wouldn't you know that you have a whole case of schnapps? But to me, that added another creepy level to it. And on top of that, there's another moment where Ogilvy's sitting on the stairs with Rachel, and he turns to her and says, hey, you know, if anything happens to your dad, I'll take care of you. And that in itself is creepy, right? Because it's just that implication of like, will he do something to the dad?
Right.
And I think that helps to justify a little bit why Cruise kills him.
100%. This fits this version. That's all I'm saying. I think you could do a version where you modulate. It's modulated, pitch perfect for this basement with this Tom Cruise, with this everything. Also, I love how it's shot. I love how you don't see it.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to bring up before we get into our categories?
I don't mean to come off negative. I know we tossed the ball around this. I just think this isn't Jaws. And I think there's a reason for that. But I think this is still a very good movie. Hence, really, it's like Steven Spielberg. It's like, oh my gosh, if this is your B-side, you're the greatest director that ever lived. So the point of this isn't to be like, oh, there's no flaws. I just think it's happy to debate it a bit. The pros far outweigh the cons, especially in, here we're in 2025. Who's making movies like this currently? Like a
Oh,
big
I
budget
know.
spectacle. It's
I
trying to
know.
like,
I wish.
yeah.
It
So just I
is.
hope I didn't come off too antagonistic. It is a giant thumbs up. And I will say it went down easier for me on this watch than the initial one. That was fresh. And I knew about the ending. That was kind of hanging out. Now that it's there, it's kind of like, all right, well, here it comes. And then
Well, I appreciate you again being willing to discuss it. I really wanted to because I had already said it a couple times. I love this movie. So why don't we get into our categories?
our categories are just a part where we can highlight some of our favorite moments and performances from the film.
Greg, what do you think is the core or heart of this film?
Humans survive. That's it. No matter what the issue is, one way or the other, we will keep going on as a species.
I love it. Yeah, I put survival, parenthood, and the anxiety of 9/11. All right, this is going to be a big discussion. Favorite scene?
See, this is why it's a good movie. There's a lot to choose from.
There is set piece after set piece after set piece. I mean, you had already said, I think you said it was relentless, and it really is to these characters. Like, so much happens to them.
I'll say the attack on the ferry, just because I like when things start to spiral, we're escaping from them. Okay, we're on the ferry. Great, we're safe. Actually, there's one in the water, and then that turns into a whole bunch in the water. Turns out, once the movie gets rolling after that initial attack, any 5 minute segment's going to have something of note that I want to dive into. So I'm just kind of throwing a dart. But that one, just the menace, and then just all the bodies in the water and the franticness of it all, that
Yeah.
imagery really stays with me.
I remember the reason I got this on physical media was so that I could rewatch that first tripod emerging scene over and over again. It's such a great scene when the street is swiveling and there's that great shot of the church coming around the sun and the rays are shining
Oh
through.
my gosh. Yeah.
And
Yep.
then the tripod emerging slowly, rising. And damn, Spielberg is just, he's so good. It's incredible. But I have to agree with you. The more times I watch this film, it's the ferry attack scene.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
talk about a masterclass in building suspense, staging, blocking, sound design, practical effects. When Rachel first follows the birds flying, right? And then she says, the trees are funny. I mean, it gets intense, right? She grabs her dad's hand, and that's the first time, really, that she grabs him. Then he looks back, the music builds slowly, and we reveal the tripods up on the hill. Then that foghorn, and people panic. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. And the shot of the tripod that's under the water,
Yeah.
creeping towards them, then when it bursts out of the water, there's a sound element that's introduced for the first time, and I'm not sure if it's used again, but it's like a low foghorn, and it's so scary as the sense of scale is insane as it starts to almost hover over them. And then when it tips the ferry over, there's a great practical shot of a car pushing the three of them into the water. And there's a family inside the car. It's a quick shot
Yeah.
from inside
Yep.
of that family screaming. And it's those little moments, those little details that Spielberg is so good at. Like even earlier when the ferry takes off, right? The engine's gone and the panicked people on the dock are sprayed with the water, like an extra FU. But also the ferry pulls the rope and unhinges the mooring ballard, right? Or whatever it's
Yep.
called. And it just trips people up. You don't necessarily need those small moments, but it adds so much. And same with the three of them finally coming up for air as they surface. Right next to the ferry engine, the blades are just spinning a few feet away. And it's just another detail that adds so much danger. So then they swim off. You see the tripod standing in the water, using their tentacles to grab at random people. And that's the first time that element is introduced. So it's even scarier.
Like it's not scary enough as it is.
Right.
Scooped
And
up
it's
by the-
terrifying. And then it ends with a wide shot of around 5 tripods in the water collecting people. And then another wide shot of the three of them seeing 3 more tripods coming over a hill and obliterating a massive crowd of people running for their lives. So then obviously they run. And the last thing they see are just dirty clothes raining down on them. It's shocking, horrifying, and an amazing scene that it gets me every time. I love it. I love it.
All right, we're in agreement. The peanut
Yeah.
butter scene back at the house.
Something I wanted to mention, it's a quick thing, but while Robbie is flipping channels in the beginning of the movie, there's a quick clip of the train crash from the movie The Greatest Show on Earth, which is a major influence on Spielberg. And
Oh,
his film The Fablemans actually explores this a little bit. Did you catch that?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I was watching it and I noticed it. All right, favorite shot.
It's not my okay. I'm gonna give my runner up. Him finding the blood on his hand is so ghoulish. He holds his hand out and he's getting the blood that's in the air, and he kind of takes it back and looking at it. That's so ghoulish. And for something like Spielberg, again, Spielberg gets this knock as like not being dark. That's not it. He can be plenty dark. It's just his ending. So it's like there's so much darkness in this that just maybe you can debate the happy endings all you want. That's for another's tale. But like this guy, when he wants to get his hands dirty, literally, he can pull it off. I love that. But I gotta say, the shot of the initial attack when the tripod rises up and the camera drops and you see the attack through the camera real fast, I think it shows how fast everything just goes to pure hell. I think it goes from being a spectacle to now you're in it. I also love the church shot when you just said a second ago, but if I have to choose one, that shot through the camera of the initial attack.
That's an incredible shot. We have so many to choose from. That's
Yeah.
why I wanted to start this category, because we could
Yeah.
spend all day talking about shots. So my runner up is the shot of the van driving off with the bridge and houses blowing up in the background. I still remember the first time I saw that shot and just was so blown away by it. Pun intended. But my favorite shot, and again, this was just my visceral reaction when I saw this in theaters, and it still holds up today, is Ray coming up the stairs of his ex-wife's house and seeing it obliterated, and there's a jetliner engine in the living room,
Oh my
then
gosh. Yeah.
pulling back to reveal the neighborhood has been completely destroyed. There's no CG in that scene. It's all practical. And that helps for the shock factor.
Yep.
And have you been to the set at
No,
Universal Studios?
no.
That is still there at Universal Studios. So if you go to Universal Studios and you do the tram ride, they actually drive through that set so you can see the destruction of the neighborhood. Who is your MVP?
Okay. Tom Cruise, living legend, charisma off the charts. I got to go Dakota Fanning because I think it's tough to be a kid actor, and she was one of the best. Still has a fantastic career. I hadn't seen this in a while. I've always been a fan of her. She was always great, but man, one of the greats. Her playing off Cruise. He's fantastic. He does exactly what he needs to do. But I just think that to be a kid and be able to pull those emotional beats, and a lot of this is just putting her through the ringer and have that feel authentic and still be engaging and not have the kid come off as annoying, which can happen at times. I think she does a great job.
Awesome. I'm going with Cruise. If you see the movie, you know why. But I wanted to shout out Lenny Veneto as Manny the mechanic.
Yeah.
He's so good. He has such presence, and you immediately take to him. And the fact that he can hold his own acting against Tom Cruise is awesome. Okay, what is your underrated element?
Literally, a guy gets put on the ground and they stick a giant straw in him. You don't see the straw go in, but you understand what's happening. And then blood comes spilling out of this device. I don't think this movie needed to go that hard. I don't think Spielberg needed to be putting that stuff in there. Again, there's a lot of people who like to take shots at Spielberg because of how popular he is. And I don't know, man. I think sometimes he's underrated. I think people just like taking shots at people who are at close to the top of the hill. Oh, you're king of the hill? You're not so great. It's like, actually, he's pretty great. So I think how dark this is willing to go. It's not that he can't tell a rip-roaring story. We know he can do that. But this is like your stomach's churning at points. I think it's great that he's willing to go there.
I love that assessment. I love it. And I'm with you. I don't understand people who take shots at Spielberg. You can certainly get complacent, right, with him. And then when you rewatch one of his movies, you're just like, no, this is why. This is why he is king of the hill.
I think there is a level of taking him for granted.
Yeah, which is dumb because he's not going to be with us for the rest of our lives.
Yep.
My underrated element is Spielberg's use of reflections.
Oh, yeah.
This is honestly something I noticed the second or third time I saw it, and it's brilliant. Spielberg shows us a good amount of action through reflections in windows, mirrors, and shiny objects. The first lightning strike we see in that freak storm in the beginning is reflected in the window of Ray's house. And there's plenty of great shots of the first tripod as it emerges, all shown through windows and windshield reflections. And you said it, your favorite shot is that's the first time we see people getting killed. They're shown through a camcorder screen, which is another reflection. And you had discussed this moment too, when Ray throws that piece of bread with peanut butter in frustration and it sticks to the window. And when he takes that beat, the bread is sliding down that window as he's sort of calming himself down, telling everyone to relax. And I just love that image of the bread sliding down. There's another intense one is the three of them in the diner after the crazy standoff as someone carjacks them for the van. Then we see through the diner windows as another guy who picked up Ray's gun shoots the carjacker and people start to swarm the van. The most obvious one that I didn't even pick up on until this viewing is when Ray uses, in the house, he uses the massive mirror to hide behind as the tentacles looking for them in the house. I just think it's an awesome motif of reflection, introspection, and of looking at ourselves in times like this.
I love that as an observation. And now that you say that, it's clear as a bell that he's using that. I didn't even process that going through, but like with them hiding behind the mirror. And again, going back to the peanut butter scene, I know I'm just dumping on that. That's just us having a fun conversation. The visual of that peanut butter slide, that's great. And that's Spielberg, baby. Like here's this guy.
It's these little details that he's so good. Okay, who is having the most fun?
This is tough because it's such a grim film. So I'm going to say the special effects department.
Oh man, I said the exact same thing.
Yeah. All right. Excellent.
I honestly was like, Tom Cruise isn't having fun. Spielberg, he's dealing with a lot of anxiety here. There's no way he's having fun with this, but all the practical effects in this are just incredible and stunning. What scene would you show someone to convince them to watch this?
I got to go with the first appearance of the tripod. I mean, it's visually stunning. You're into it. And I think, how would you not want to watch where things go from there? And there's plenty more set pieces where that came from. So you're not even like, that's not even like the best thing the movie has to offer. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
I'm with you. I know that's boring that we constantly are having the same answer, but that's it. You show someone that scene, they're going to want to watch the rest of the film. T-shirt quote.
Okay. I wonder if we have the same one. Mine would be Tim Robbins and Not My Blood.
It's really good. I love that. I love that.
Freaked out face and Not My Blood.
But you need his freaked out face with the specks of blood on it for sure. Oh, that's amazing. I don't have that one. I do have another Tim Robbins quote. However, I did want to say, not a very quotable movie. There's not a lot of
just screaming. And,
Mine's the Tim Robbins saying, "I'm dead set on living."
Oh, okay, that's good.
Again, not a lot of quotes to choose from. Like you said, a lot of screaming. So I mean, you could just have someone screaming on the T-shirt.
Dakota Fanning's horrified face and just.
Okay, Oscar nominations. Now, it was nominated for 3 Academy Awards, but it did not win. So it was nominated for sound mixing, sound editing, and visual effects.
Well earned. I mean, the visual effect and also the sound design of that, like the war horn on that, fantastic. It's great.
It's so good.
I mean, so those 3 are well earned. I mean, Spielberg is director. Again, it's like, oh, you're going to nominate Spielberg for director? Yeah, because he's a great director. He does a great job. Cruise is fantastic. And again, like any of my script issues, he sells it. He's an excellent salesman. Whether or not I think that's the tears in his eyes when he's trying to communicate with these kids, the frustration, you're in this unbelievable situation. How do you get through it? He does a fantastic job. And I'd say Dakota Fanning for best supporting actress.
I honestly would give it to the visual effects department and sound editing. The sound design in this entire film, it honestly leaves me speechless. That's how good it is. Okay, we always like to end with a crew shout out. Greg, who do you want to tell us about?
There's so many talented people in the special effects department. Just looking them up on IMDb. I just chose one. So I went with Joe Gomez, who was the mold shop supervisor. He also worked on Watchmen, Drag Me to Hell, and Tron Legacy.
Oh, that's awesome. So I went with the sound editor, Richard King, who was nominated for an Academy Award. He did not win. It was actually Peter Jackson's King Kong one.
Okay.
Yeah. Richard also worked on Waterworld, Gattaca, Magnolia, Inception, Interstellar, and Oppenheimer.
Oh.
He's also credited with working on The Wizard of Oz at the Sphere. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone so much for listening. We had a lot of fun rewatching this. I am really glad that Greg indulged me in rewatching this and discussing it. And we will be sure to get back to the B-sides, the overlooked, and the offbeat very soon.
Also, I'll say if you were a little on the fence about this one, watch it again. I think a lot of the reservations will kind of wash away. And if you really want to have a thought experiment, watch the 2025 version right before it, and you're going to think it's like the best movie you've ever seen in your life. So that's where I'm at with it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this episode of The Real Demers. If you enjoyed what you heard, please support by leaving a like or review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. You can find us on Blue Sky and Instagram. If If you want to reach out and send a comment, you can email us at realdemers@gmail.com. Our music is by Adolfo Delanoy. You can check him out on Instagram at Adolfo Delanoy. That's DELANNOY. Thanks again, and be safe.